A woman lived in a small house on the outskirts of a large city. She was single and lived alone with only a large dog for company, a Doberman. One evening, the woman came home from work to find that her dog was choking on something, laying on the living room floor, gasping for air. The woman dropped her purse and tried to clear her dog's throat, but failed. Obviously worried about her companion's health, she immediately loaded her pet into the car and drove to the nearest vet. The vet examined the Doberman and said she would probably have to operate on the dog's trachea to remove the blockage. She told her to go home, that she would call later to let her know how things went. Meanwhile, the dog was still gasping for air and getting weaker every moment. Flustered, she went straight home. As she started to close the front door behind her, she got a call on her cell phone. It was the vet, and something seemed very wrong. "Listen carefully," she said urgently. "You must leave the house immediately. Go to a neighbor's house and wait for the police to arrive. I had already called them. Go now." Shocked and frightened, the woman wasted no time and ran straight out the front door. After a few minutes, the police car arrived with a siren. The police came out and explained they had to search the house. They entered the front door with guns drawn. The woman was speechless. She didn't know what was going on. She called the vet to ask what was happening. "I managed to remove the blockage from your dog's throat," she said. "When I found out what caused him to choke, I called the police. Your dog choked on 3 human fingers." While searching the place, the police found a masked man in the closet of the woman's bedroom. He was armed with a knife and bent over in pain, holding his right hand. The dog bit off 3 of his fingers. The Donkey Lady is a terrifying mutant that has been spotted near San Antonio, Texas, and Bexar County. Donkey Lady has been described as the size of an average adult woman. Her hands and feet resemble hooves. Her face is long and grotesquely extended to resemble a horse's. On Weird Texas, someone shares their story, writing, "This story is not directly related to me, but happened to some of my friends. I have known them all my life and have no reason not to believe them. On one night in late 1987, 4 buddies showed up at my best friend's house, bored and looking for something to do. We suggested to visit the Donkey Lady Bridge. This place was only a short drive from the house, 5 or 6 miles, and was a local favorite for late night stories. They agreed and soon headed to the bridge. About 6 hours later, their vehicle returned to our driveway with only 1 occupant. Assuming he had taken the girls home and was ready to party in San Antonio, we eagerly went out to greet him. What we found in the car was something I will never forget. The windshield was broken, the front was damaged, and there appeared to be blood on the hood. We immediately ran to the driver's door to see if John was okay, but John sat and looked out the window with a blank expression on his face. After several minutes of constant begging, we finally got him to talk. He, Lisa, Terry, and Jill made it to the bridge. They began blowing their horns in an attempt to summon the legendary Donkey Lady. After about 15 minutes of not seeing anything, they decided to go to the forest to look for themselves. What happened next was truly unbelievable, and if I hadn't known John for all of his life and hadn't seen the car, I wouldn't have believed him. Walking in the woods, John said he had the feeling that they were being watched. He immediately stopped and told everyone to be quiet. Looking around and assessing the situation, he noticed 2 eyes staring at them from afar. Those eyes seemed to reflect the light of the moon, and their color was indescribable, he said. The girls panicked and started running back to the car. John quickly followed, and soon after turning away, a terrible scream came from the direction he saw the eyes. He described it as almost a cry of an intelligent animal. He was too afraid to turn around, so he quickly ran to the car. When he arrived, the girls were already in the car, yelling for him to get in and go. As he tried to find his keys, he heard the sounds of a horse running towards them. He started the car, put it in gear, and slammed on the gas pedal. Suddenly, a figure appeared on the road in front of him. John sped forward, hitting the figure because he was afraid to stop. It hit the hood of the car and rolled over the roof. Looking in his rearview mirror, he said he thought the figure would stand up and continue following him. After hearing this and seeing the condition of the car, Steve and I immediately felt like it deserved a second look. John told us he would never go back to that bridge, but if we wanted to go risk our lives, go right ahead. We grabbed 2 flashlights and some shotguns. They were Steve's dad's biggest guns. Jumped in my pickup truck and headed to the bridge. As we approached, we slowed down and turned on my truck's many off-road lights. They lit up the road and the woods beside us as if it were daytime, giving us a great view of the bridge as we approached. The first thing we noticed as we approached the bridge was the large amount of blood on the road. However, this was the only clue we could find. Exploring the forest on foot and with shotguns, we found tracks of a small shoeless horse that led us to the road. After a few hours of searching and finding nothing else, we returned to the house. By this time, John had already found his way home, and we were lying in bed too disturbed to sleep. So far, none of the 4 people involved in the story have returned to the bridge. Did John really see and hit the donkey lady that night? Or was it a stray horse startled by their presence? All I know is that something was there that night and scared our friends. Another story again from Weird Texas reads, one weekend in 1989, my friends and I were driving a 1973 Impala that one of them owned. We were showing Todd's younger cousins around. They turned 13 that year and were accepted into the friend group. We decided to go to the Donkey Lady Bridge, partially because we had never been there, partially to give them a good scare. Every kid who grew up in San Antonio knows about the Donkey Lady. We drove onto the bridge and turned off the headlights before we entered it. It's pretty scary out at night. Todd began to slowly rock across the bridge when a figure appeared seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of it. He stopped the car and we speculated in whispers as to who or what it was. We didn't expect to see anything, especially not this. Todd put the car in gear, honking his horn. He slowly inched his way towards the figure, which promptly vanished. Then the car was stopped again, finally shutting us all up. Todd listened to our suggestions to reverse our speed out of there when something jumped on the hood. Everyone screamed and Todd put the car in reverse, speeding out of there. A dark shape rolled off the hood and Todd didn't stop until we hit the freeway. When we got out, we all looked at the hood, which now had 2 very deep dents. No one had an explanation for where the figure dropped from to make them. Todd took his car to the body shop the next day and had to replace the entire hood. The indents were too deep to pound out. By the way, I was 17 when that happened and I'm 30 today and I never went back there. Some stories say that she lost her children in a fire started by her husband. Horribly disfigured by the fire, her fingers and toes fused together, creating hoof-like hands and feet. Her head burned so badly that it healed so twisted and elongated that it resembled a donkey's head. She wanders around the South Antonio Bridge at night and cries for her children. She routinely chases off anyone who bothers her by honking. Why are there so many restless spirits in a quiet town like Quitman? This could be related to the area's past, said Dr. Mike Barnett, a retired physician, a member of the Heber Springs Historical Society. He said Quitman is much older than almost any community in northern Arkansas. During the Civil War, it was a popular place for military service for men. He said until 1870. Quitman was a major trading center and a major crossroads. It was a halfway point for those traveling from Memphis to Little Rock or Batesville, Conway. There were nice big houses and buildings, he said. In more recent years, Ford and Eileen Bettis moved into the house in the early 1950s. The couple, who were child-free for many years, had a son, Gerald Floyd Bettis. In 1954, Gerald was a difficult child. Early on, those who knew him said his parents were good people, but Gerald was an idiot, mean and cruel. Gerald also developed unusual habits early on, including collecting cats and dogs, which led him to his nickname, Dog Boy. He caught stray animals and hurt them. The town could hear them howling. The kids grabbed him and took things from him. It was like he enjoyed being aggravated, as it got him attention. Gerald's actions reportedly became more sinister. He basically kept his parents trapped upstairs in the house. He fed them, but only when he decides it's time for them to eat. According to locals, Gerald towered over his elderly parents at 6'4" and weighed nearly 300 pounds as an adult. He was also regularly reported to have hurt his father, even throwing him out of an upstairs window once as a teenager. Although he was in his 70s at the time, Floyd hung on the windowsill until local police arrived. Floyd Bettis passed in 1981 after falling ill at home. Others say he was pushed down the stairs and broke his neck. A neighbor said she was afraid of Gerald, saying if you ever saw his eyes, they seemed to glow at night. One time he came here and hit us because we were taking down a tree covering his yard. And when they started cleaning that house, one of his uncles came over to borrow a weapon because he was afraid Gerald was going crazy. In the early 1980s, Eileen Bettis fell and broke her hip, requiring hospitalization. Inner saw how Gerald treated his mother. He slapped her and told her, "I'll have you arrested if you tell anyone what I did." Shortly after the incident, Eileen Bettis was placed in adult protective custody and permanently removed from her home. A short time later, Gerald Bettis built a sunroom behind the house and sold plants he grew, including marijuana. Authorities arrested him based on this and the statements from his mother. Gerald went to prison in the late 1980s and passed of an overdose. State records confirm that Gerald Bettis passed away May 1988 at age 34. When Eileen Bettis passed in 1995, her niece Reba Carter inherited the house. Soon there was a real estate sale. Reba later sold the house to Tony Weaver, a truck driver. Weaver and his wife lived in the Bettis house for several years and experienced paranormal activity. She said she was going to turn off all the lights before she went to work the night shift, but when she got back the lights would be on. But then more supernatural events began to occur. One time, pennies floated down the stairs of the upper floor of the house. The coins stopped and fell to the floor right in front of her. After 6 months of these events, she was very scared and didn't want to live there anymore. Tony Weaver also has his share of scary experiences. One day I was working on the house and saw a man looking across the hall into the living room. He looked like a World War I soldier with a helmet. He looked so genuine, and when he entered the living room, I ran after him, but there was no one there. In 2003, Quentin White and his wife Stephanie moved into the house. Weird things would happen regularly, like the toilet would flush itself. One day, Quentin was working on the house while Stephanie was on the phone with him. He said he heard a commotion upstairs and went to find out what had happened. He had previously put a large pile of 2x4s on the floor. When he reached the upper room, he told his wife all the boards were standing up straight. The couple lived there only for a few months. Weaver, who still owns the Bettis house, continues to show the home to potential buyers, so far with little success. He said he once put a pair of new sunglasses and prescription medicine on the table. While there, he said he became angry at his inability to sell the house and express his bitterness, saying, "These horrors of hell, I'm tired of taking care of this place." He said that his comments must have set off something or someone, because later both the glasses and medicine disappeared. If you bring someone there that the spirits don't like, you get chills and your hair stands on end. A woman interested in buying the house brought her young daughter. The woman told Weaver that the daughter was sensitive. As the woman walked through the house, the daughter stopped on the steps and said she was very sad. Another time, some potential buyers saw that the recliner flipped back as if someone was sitting there. It was stuck like that the whole time they were looking at the place. Another buyer brought his dog with him to look at the house, but the animal refused to go inside. A man who was working on remodeling the home said he prefers to work on the house at night because too many ghost enthusiasts want to come inside. Several unexplained incidents also happened to him. I'm a reasonable person. I don't believe in the paranormal, but since I worked in this place, I feel very uncomfortable, like someone is watching me. He claims to have seen ghosts several times. When I drive down the freeway at night, I see a man looking down at me. He is dressed in a brown jacket and tie, like from another time. He claims to have seen the ghost of Gerald Bettis following him several times. He was this huge, weird cat with long brown hair, scary eyes, big arms and hands. He walked right in front of me and glared at me. As soon as I saw him, he walked down the hall and disappeared. He said he also felt cold wind blowing on his neck. Very odd, the ghost of Gerald is described as cat-like. Sometimes I hear someone knocking or walking across the floor, but I don't see anything, just to let me know they were there. In 2005, paranormal investigators revisited the house, reporting we went there twice. On the first time, we detected cold places 10 to 15 degrees colder than the outside temperature of the house. A very sensitive electromagnetic field detector was used, which picks up all kinds of electromagnetic readings. And we detected an energy force that had no explanation, claiming the team followed the entity through the kitchen, where one of the team members felt someone touch him. One time when we went to get things from the car, we looked up and saw a face looking down at us. All 3 members of the team saw a face in the window, but it was confirmed that there was nobody upstairs at the time. Another time, the team used a medium to contact the spirit of Gerald Bettis. He cursed at us and told us to get out. The team used video to document additional evidence of paranormal activity, including orbs flying through the wall and unexplained flickering of lights. Although video footage of these ghost hunting trips have been shot twice, the team claims the more spectacular tape is missing. Several attempts to locate the film were unsuccessful.